So today's video is on a brand new fragrance and one that I recently acquired, and it's by Rai Phalail and it's called Oud Noir Vodka. Now, occasionally I come across a fragrance that I think has a really nice presentation, very heavy bottle, super long lasting, smells amazing, and I have the need to introduce it to my audience. And that is the case in today's video. Now, normally I love to make list videos. I'll talk about my top 5 this, top 10 that. But at the end of the day, I feel like there are certain fragrances that for whatever reason deserve the spotlight. And this one is quite wonderful in my opinion. I'm gonna be giving you my thoughts on this apple, vanilla, lavender, and cedar fragrance in just a little bit. But before I start the video, I do want to mention that if you're a fan of perfume related content, and if you love smelling your best, hit subscribe, hit the bell, and also please give this video a thumbs up for the algorithm. It would really mean a lot to me, and I appreciate you all so much from the bottom of my heart. For all of the time that you give me on this platform, your viewership is very much appreciated. Also love the interaction as well. So whenever you can drop a comment on these videos, giving me your thoughts on the fragrances that I review or the lists that I make, it really means a lot to me. Now, of course, with a name like Oud Noir Vodka, I expected this to have, well, oud and vodka in it. And it does not. And so I think it's misnamed to a degree, but I'll tell you exactly what I get from the smell. I have encountered many oud fragrances, Laotian oud, Cambodian oud, Thai oud, Indian oud, the list goes on and on. I know what oud smells like, the synthetic varieties, the natural varieties. I've explored so many brands over the past 15 years that I've been making videos here on YouTube. And of course, this has zero oud in it as far as my nose can perceive. And that might not necessarily be a bad thing. So hear me out. As far as the vodka goes, the first fragrance that came to my mind is Straight to Heaven by Kilian. I think that one has a really nice boozy rum accord. And then of course, there's also Vodka on the Rocks, which has a vodka accord. So there are certain brands that I think do boozy fragrances very well. And I'm not necessarily getting anything boozy from this. However, that apple and vanilla combination immediately reminded me, before I even smelled it, just looking at the note breakdown, right? It reminded me of another fragrance that I truly love, which is La Danza delle Libellule by Nobile 1942. It's a beautiful fragrance. I own a bottle of it. I'm so happy that I purchased it all these years later. And it's one that I've already made a significant dent in my bottle with because it's just an amazing fragrance all year round. Not the longest lasting fragrance in my collection, but I love that sweetness. And I would say the sweetness is matched in this fragrance. The vanilla in here is done so delightfully well. It has like this sweet, almost sultry personality in the dry down, and it's not overly sweet to the point that it's a gourmand. At the end of the day, I think classification-wise, I would call this a fruity perfume. It is fruity through and through. And in addition to the apple, I would go as far as to say that I'm also getting some tropical fruits. I'm not getting mango or pineapple per se, but perhaps I am getting a little melon, a little cantaloupe. You know, it's kind of putting me in the vibe of those fragrances, which is why I would say this one I think bears the most resemblance to something like Erba Pura by Xerjoff, another fragrance that I purchased years back, and I love it. And I also have Erba Leather by Sospiro, and I have Erba Gold, and I have the New Coro as well, which I think is a sister or a cousin to Erba Pura. Again, it's from the same brand, right? So at the end of the day, there's gonna be some resemblance being bared. But at the end of the day, I think this one does it a little differently, and I admire that. I am getting that aromatic lavender, but it's not overly pronounced, and I appreciate it for that reason. I think some people may have an aversion to some lavender-based fragrances, and I think in many reasons and in many cases, it's justified, but I think it also creates this timeless, classy signature to a fragrance that this one does possess, but with that twist of modernity. And the modernity, in my opinion, is brought forth by the utilization of all of these fruity ingredients, which, again, we didn't really see a preponderance of decades ago. And only in the past decade or so, they have made this sort of resurgence, and they've really been spotlighted in a very different way in fragrance composition. So I'm really, really enjoying the fruity cocktail that is thrown into the mix with this fragrance. And I also really personally love and admire the longevity of this fragrance as well. I know for a lot of people, longevity is paramount. And so they're not going to purchase a fragrance if it lasts 4 hours on their skin. For me, I think the smell itself always takes precedence. So if it smells good, I can deal with reapplying, especially if it falls within the affordability bracket, right? I think in the case of this fragrance, nothing to worry about. 8+ hours longevity. Of course, it's all going to be contingent on your skin chemistry. If you have really good skin chemistry, hopefully you'll get 10+ hours. I don't know. I tend to have pretty dry skin. I shower quite often and I don't really moisturize, right? So, but even on my skin, I get a solid 8 hours, which I think is apropos considering the price tag and the concentration. And I just think, yeah, it is an eau de parfum. So I think it's kind of within the realm of what is expected from a fragrance with this concentration. 8 hours longevity, fruity cocktail, a lot of apple, a little bit of lavender, not too much, but enough to create a timeless signature within the composition. The woodsy notes in the dry down, like the cedar, they're not overly pronounced. Cedar for me has a very peppery profile, and I'm not getting that necessarily from this fragrance, but I am getting the vanilla. So it's a really harmonious blend of fruits, specifically apple as per the note breakdown, and vanilla. So it's a very effortless, very confident, very easy to wear perfume with a hint of fun added into the mix as well. So it's not an overly serious composition, which I think one might get the impression of it being on account of the name, Oud Noir, noir meaning dark or black. Oud Noir Vodka, you think of something woodsy, something dark, something boozy. And that's why when I smelled it, I was like, oh, this is very bright, fun, fruity, and uplifting. So at the end of the day, I think the judgment to make is entirely your own, which is why I always recommend you go out there, you try it for yourself, see if there's any means by which you can procure a sample. This way, when you do put it on your own skin, you see how it works with your skin chemistry, and you see if you'd be potentially in the market for a full bottle purchase. I think a lot of us are kind of, proceeding with an air of cautiousness surrounding our frugality, or lack thereof, I should say, because, fragrances are getting quite expensive nowadays, which is why, I try to experiment with a variety of different olfactive offerings, some expensive, some really high-end niche, some ultra-luxury niche. And then I also have some affordable Middle Eastern counterparts. And then, of course, I have the designers, which are kind of the in-betweens. And then we also have a lot of really accessible brands from Sephora, like Ella's Brooklyn and Sol de Janeiro and Kayali. And these are kind of, at this point, priced a little bit lower than designer fragrances because we've seen what happened in the designer market as well. A lot of these designer brands are upcharging for their fragrances, and it's just par for the course, I think. A lot of these fragrance brands and companies are trying to make as much money as possible. So I really appreciate it when I discover a brand that I think possesses really good quality, excellent longevity, a really beautiful signature, and something that is accessible, something that is mass appealing, something that is perfectly unisex. You can wear it any time of the year, which is also not the case for a lot of fragrances, which is why I often curate content based on different seasons, right? So I'll make my top 5 or top 10 fall fragrances video. I'll make one for winter. I'll make one for the summer. And then I also curate lists around the occasion. These are great for a date. These are great for the office. But here is a Swiss Army knife of a perfume. Incredibly versatile. I'm personally really enjoying this one. And again, it bears an olfactive profile of which I am a big fan. Again, I've encountered similar profiles in other fragrances that I've alluded to throughout the course of this video, but I really think there's something special about this fragrance. And I think the bottle itself looks really nice, really classy. And believe me, I know you're not holding it in your hand right now. I am. It is a very heavy bottle, really elaborate presentation. I don't have the box on hand because I had packed it up and put it in a separate room along with many other perfume boxes. I've been doing a little bit of organizing as of late, but if there's an opportunity for you to check this one out, if you're a fan of apple fragrances, if you're a fan of fruity fragrances, if you don't mind your fragrances leaning in a bit of a tropical direction, if you like some of the sweeter fragrances without it being a full-blown gourmand. I know there's also people who are getting a bit tired of the preponderance of the gourmand perfumes and, sugar this and cotton candy that and, whipped cream this. And there's a lot of that. So I think this strikes a nice balance between being sweet, but also aromatic and fruity. Oud Noir Vodka by Rai Phalail. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope you took something of value from today's episode. And of course, if you did, please do consider supporting the channel by clicking subscribe. It smells so good. Hitting the bell, and also giving this video a thumbs up if you haven't already done so. This is not a sponsored post, and if I do find any links for this product, I'm going to drop them down below, and they're not going to be affiliate links either. It's just a means by which you can sample the fragrance or discover the fragrance. This way you can learn more about it the way that I've been given an opportunity to learn about it as well. So thank you again for watching. I appreciate your time. Thank you for spending these past 8 minutes with me, or however long it's been. It means more to me than you know. So thanks again for watching. I love you all, and we'll see you tomorrow with a new episode. Bye.